Welcome to Real Life with Jenny. My name's Jenny Senaparatna. Grab your favorite drink, get yourself a snack, and we will get started. Today, I have Earl Grey, but most importantly, I have Air Pop popcorn with M&Ms. I know, I love Air Pop popcorn with butter and salt, and my daughter loves the M&Ms, but she left, and I have popcorn left over, so there we go. Well, let's get real. I want to talk about the decorations in my house. I am very weird when it comes to decorations. It is something that I like. Right behind me right here, that is our Israel trip, for those who have ever wondered and cared. So that is our trip to Israel. Actually, right there is my daughter getting baptized in the Jordan River by my husband. There is pictures of our family in the word family, and then up there on the street of Rome. I know it sounds really kind of weird that I'm like, oh, and in Rome, my husband and I went there for our 20th anniversary, and we got to stop and watch this guy spray paint stuff, and that is what he spray painted, and I fell in love with it, and I got it home, and it's on my wall. But I am very weird because our trips are all over the house. They are in different spots of the house. This is the only spot you normally get to see, but I've got pictures all over the house. But I also have some weird little things that you kind of see behind me sometimes. So I've got my be strong and courageous, which is the verse that I'm holding on to right now. This is kind of that verse that's gotten really deep into my soul this last month, because the Lord's with you wherever you go. Sorry, my eyes are watering. But what's weird about my house is I love an animal. So I've got moose all over my house, like little moose statues. I have a chicken and a goat. Is it a goat or cow? It's a chicken and a cow, because I was kind of obsessed with like getting chickens for a while, and we live in a trailer court, so that's not something we're allowed to do. They're like, no chickens in our trailer court, which I understand. Like, I get you. So I've got little stuffed ones that I bought one year. And I have this little guy who I just saw one day and fell in love with, this little flamingo. He is so cute. I should maybe show him to you. Like, look at this. I know I never do this. Like, look at this little guy. Is he nuts? He's so soft and cute. Okay, let's put him back. But I have him in my house for a specific reason. And that is that so I have things around my house that remind me of things. They trigger prayer and thoughts, and most of the stuff in my house is either a really great memory, or it's something that I need to remember on a constant basis. So right below my clock in my living room, so we have a really big open concept living room. I'm talking like really big in a trailer court, so let's kind of like, we're different than maybe regular people. But we have a vaulted ceiling, and so I have a clock. I have a thing that has all my pictures of my grandparents and my husband's grandparents in there. And then right underneath is God is in control. That's what it says. It just says God is in control. And I look at the clock a lot, right? I don't know about you. Maybe you look at your phone more often now than you do the wall. But it reminds me on a daily, hour by hour basis that God is in control, that he loves me and that he's in control. So when I saw this little flamingo, I was like, okay, not only is this flamingo adorable, but I have him up in my house, which seems a little bizarre for a 49-year-old lady to have stuffed animals up around her house. But he's a reminder of something, that flamingos are only pink because of what they eat. Now, I looked it up right before I did this podcast, because I was like, am I wrong? Like, am I losing my mind that this is what I've heard and I've got it up in my house and it's not true? Like, wouldn't that be horrible? Like, you have this thing up in your house and you find out later that it's a lie. Maybe I've got stuff like that. Anyway, but it's true. Flamingos are born gray, and as they eat the algae and the the food that they eat, their body digests it, and there's certain colors in it that turn them pink. So flamingos are different shades of pink according to where they live and what kind of food they eat. And I think that is so intriguing to me because I remember years ago, I was at a church and this pastor got up and he preached, and I had never heard someone preach about food in my entire life. I mean, I'd never heard about anyone preaching on food. And he was a military guy, and he got up and he's like, food is fuel. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean food is fuel? Food is love. Food is yummy. Food is love. Like, what do you mean food is fuel? Like, I just couldn't even, I just sat there going, what is he talking about? And he's like, I get up in the morning and I eat because I have to. I don't care about what I eat because it's about putting fuel into my body. And I was like, what? I mean, I was stunned. I mean, I was just like, wow. No, this is not a food is fuel podcast. Let's just be real. Like, food is still love. Food is still love. Food is still comfort. Yes, food is important to me. And so we're just not going to go down that path. Like, you can make all the comments you want and about food is fuel, and it is fuel. And I get that. And I think his point, I think that, I don't know, because I got so distracted by the craziness of mind-blowing information for me. I was in my early 30s, I believe, when he said this, either 29 or 30 years old. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is nothing, 30 years and you just blew up my brain. But it's true in our spiritual life. And I think that's why the flamingo for me is so important, because in the Bible, it talks about being the salt and the light of the earth. And it talks about it together and separately in different places. And that as Christians, we are the salt and we are the light. And we can't be salty and light without God in our lives. And I think about the flamingo when I look at how pink and vibrant this little flamingo is. And that is about what they put into their life, what they have consumed is how bright they are. Because some are like a little more orange, bright, some are a little lighter. If you ever go to a zoo, you can kind of tell what they're eating according to what color they are. And you can go some places and they're this vibrant color because of what they've consumed. And as Christians, it's the same thing. It's what we consume is how we are, right? Like we are our coloring, so to speak, of the Lord, and our brightness and our saltiness comes from what we're consuming. And that's really hard. I gotta be honest, that's hard because it's an easy road to go into thus saith the Lord kind of information. I grew up in a very legalistic situation. Not that my parents were, they were lots of rules. How about that? Lots and lots of rules. Thou shalt not paint thy nails. Thou shalt not watch movies. Thou shalt not, all of the rules. And that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about whether you should listen to country music or worship music or rap music or rock and roll. I don't even know if rock and roll is a thing anymore. I don't know. I'm not cool like that. Whether you should listen to T Swift or I know no one else. That's the only singer I know because she's big enough for me to know. I'm just not cool. But that's not what this is. Not saying you can't consume certain things. It's about what brings you back to God. What brings salt, what makes you salty, what makes you light. What things are you doing that actually take you away from the Lord and what brings you closer to the Lord? That's an individual thing. That is not a thus saith the Lord from the mountaintops. There are 10 commandments, guys, 10. And none of those are about music that I can think of. All of a sudden I'm like, is that any of those about music? But none of them are about music or reading books or what you're watching on television or what you're watching in the movie theaters or what you're watching on social media. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about a heart place. It's about what are you consuming and what does your heart look like because you're consuming it. Is my heart pink? Is my heart full of God's love and light? Because sometimes I can tend to be in a place where I'm on social media a lot because it's part of my job. And I'm on social media a lot and I am just blue. I'm so blue. I am so sad. I'm so overwhelmed and full of anxiety. And it has a lot to do with my consumption on social media. Who I have show up in my feed. Who is saying this, this, and this. And I am not all about sunshine and rainbows. I don't need everything to be happy, right? But sometimes you can get into a whole rabbit hole of chaos and it can really mess with your psyche. Like, it can. And sometimes you got to go and be like, I need puppies and rainbows. Where are my puppies? You know? You know what I'm saying? And quite often I have to go back to the Lord and say, Lord, I need you because I am really overwhelmed by this situation that I'm seeing in the news, in the world. And it's tough because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And so I can get really overwhelmed. And in fact, like the other day, I was reading a book and it was heavy. It was heavy and dark. And I'm still in the midst of the book. It's for a book club and I'm just not sure I'm going to finish it. I have to be completely honest with you because my books need to be a place that when I'm consuming them, they help me have light and salt for other people. I don't necessarily, for some people, that's great. Like, I used to be able to watch shows, and my favorite thing was to watch a documentary, and some of my favorite documentaries were on the Holocaust, and I learned a lot about the Holocaust, and in really positive ways. I mean, not that the Holocaust was positive, but I learned so much about it and really like grew intellectually, but emotionally, I was in a dark spot because that's what I was consuming, right? So there was just a lot of that kind of consuming. I used to watch a lot of darker TV shows that's what I consumed. And I could get really in a dark space. And some people, it doesn't affect at all. Some people are like, I can watch that kind of stuff and it doesn't affect my soul. Some people, it does. And so I have to stay away from stuff like that now, which is kind of sad, but I also like puppies and rainbows. So it's okay. You know, my books that I read are very fluffy and very like la 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 la, and everything's good in the end. There is no sad endings. Like, if I read a book that has a sad ending, you will know. I will be here, tears streaming down my face. I don't like sad. But that's me and that's my thing. But what in your life do you need to take before the Lord and say, Lord, I'm not this pink anymore. I've consumed so many things that maybe have made me a little gray, that have made me like it's just become, I'm a little toned down. My saltiness is not there anymore. My light has been dimmed a little bit because of what I've consumed. And I know that sounds a little harsh. And I go through that all the time in my life where I have to bring things before the Lord and say, I am feeling kind of dark on the inside. What's happening? Because the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart, I want them to be pleasing to the Lord. I want what's inside to be pleasing. It's not about what you see. It's about my heart with God, and then you'll see it, right? I want this to be authentic and real, and that you see where I really am. And you could probably tell, like, oh, Jenny's been watching too many reels on on social media. She maybe needs a little pick me up. Let's send her something. I love your puppies. Let's do that. But really, I want you to take a moment this week and think, what am I consuming? What is the color that I've become? Am I bright pink? Am I light pink? Am I a little gray? Like, what are people seeing? What does my heart look like? What have I consumed that has made my heart? What color is it by what I've been consuming? Maybe that's a little harsh for the week, but it's where I'm at and it's what I'm dealing with. So here you are coming along on the journey with me. So little guy, reminder, every day when I see him, I think, what am I consuming? And what color of pink am I? Am I someone that people see God's light and love and joy? Am I someone that adds value to people's lives because I'm salty, right? Like, not salty in a like insulting way, but I add flavor to people's lives. Am I adding to people's lives because of the things that I've consumed? Have I consumed enough of the Lord that my heart is the color he wants me to be? He wants me to be pink, bright pink, with a little cute beak. Well, that's all I have for you this week. This was kind of a bizarre one, but that's okay. You're along for the journey, and I appreciate that. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook at Real Life with Jenny. You can also support this podcast by going to buymeacoffee.com/Real Life with Jenny. All that money goes right back into this podcast, which I appreciate. And you can go to christconnection.cc/Jenny for my information. But really, are you putting things up in your life that are reminding you to go after God? That's a key for my life. Is I have things around the house like this little flamingo that remind me to go after him, that remind me that what I'm consuming is important, and remind me that sometimes bringing it back to the Lord, in fact, all the time, bringing it back to the Lord is important, because what I do, other people see. And so I just encourage you to put things up around your house that remind you, and also to reevaluate what you're consuming. Bring your heart before the Lord and say, Lord, is my flamingo heart looking pink or looking a little gray? What should I be consuming? And is there anything you want me to cut out? It's not about someone else telling you. It's not about someone else's rules and someone else's thing. It's about you and God, and that's really what it's about. You all have a great week.